I still remember the look on their faces when I stepped off the elevator 12 floors up, carpet soft as fog under my bare feet, a room full of cologne and cold smiles freezing in place like I'd dragged in a storm. I wasn't barefoot to make a point. I was barefoot because the strap on my only pair of flats snapped 2 blocks from the bus stop, and the bus had already eaten the last of my cash. I could have turned around. I could have made an excuse. Instead, I lifted my chin, tucked my toes under, and walked into Riverton and Hale like the floor belonged to me. My name is Lena Brooks. That morning started in a one-room walk-up behind a laundromat that never quite stopped humming. Paint flaked where the ceiling once leaked. The mirror was a shard I propped against a mug. I ironed a thrifted blouse with the bottom of a pot steam from a kettle hissing over the fabric until the worst of the wrinkles surrendered. I tied my hair back with a rubber band I found on the sidewalk, pressed my notes like they were scripture, and told myself out loud, "We're not asking permission. We're arriving." The sandals gave out after the second corner. I stood there half laughing, half sick, and then I did what you do when the world dares you to flinch. I kept walking. The bus driver stared at my feet, said nothing. People pretended not to look, which is another way of staring. Seattle was gray and damp in that kind of gentle way that makes glass buildings shine. When I reached the lobby, the receptionist did the up-down, eyes flick breath, pause, polite smile, stretched too thin. "Your name," she said. "Brooks. Lena." Her fingers hovered over the keyboard. "You can have a seat." The waiting room looked like a magazine spread, navy suits, pearl studs, leather portfolios. My toes looked like they'd told the truth for a living, calloused honest. I sat in the corner, opened my notebook, and let the noise roll over me. A girl in crimson heels laughed into her phone and tilted the camera as if she were checking the front-facing lens. The angle landed on my feet. The guy next to her whispered, "Is this performance art?" She smirked. "Honey, this is a lobby." I could feel the heat crawl up my neck, that old shame scratching at the door, but I didn't invite it in. I focused on what I'd spent the last 3 months devouring at night. Riverton and Hale's regional churn rates, their public filings, the way their logistics arm bled margins in mid-sized markets no one wanted to call struggling. I'd mapped it line by line with a pencil stub and a free data portal. Numbers don't care about your shoes. Names flashed on a screen. Candidate 7, candidate 8. People went in, came out paler, pretending they hadn't been rattled. When the door opened again, a staffer in a slate blazer appeared, whispered to the receptionist, then glanced in my direction. The receptionist shook her head the way people do when they're sure they know the plot. The staffer nodded anyway. "Ms. Brooks," he called. The room went quiet, then crackled. Crimson Heels snorted. "No way." I stood, carpet underfoot, breath, steady notebook against my side like a shield. The slate blazer guy led me through a glass door into a boardroom long enough to park a plane, all that expensive wood reflecting the ceiling lights. 6 interviewers lined one side, 3 men, 2 women, and 1 woman who could have sliced bread with her part. At the head sat a man with his jacket off and sleeves rolled, once Elliott Ward founder and CEO. I'd seen his face on panels and profiles where journalists called him disarmingly calm, like it was a trick. He didn't say hello. He looked at me the way you look at a chessboard, quiet and deliberate. The woman with the knife part clicked her pen. "Ms. Brooks," she said, eyes dropping to my feet and back without apology. "You came unprepared." Unshod, the man next to her added, amused at his own vocabulary. Elliot didn't look away from me. "Why are you barefoot?" "Because straps snap," I said, voice even, but ideas don't. A chuckle, a snort, a scribble. "Knife." Part leaned forward. "Confidence is cute. Let's see if it's earned." Where's the logistics sector headed in 5 years? I didn't blink. The winners will stop worshiping coastals and go where the data already whispered. Mid-tier cities with micro-fulfillment hubs, fewer last-mile contracts, more owned network. The trick isn't speed. It's reliability that treats time like currency, not a carnival ride. The man who loved his vocabulary raised a brow. Q2 earnings dip explain. You flooded ad spend into high-visibility metros to please the board, I said. But your referral program punished loyal repeat clients with tears that never matured. You paid to reacquire people you kept insulting. Elliot's eyes flicked the smallest spark. Knife Part tapped the pen slower. The questions started coming hard and fast: market share in Spokane versus Boise, vendor consolidation, how I'd align product with a seasonality curve that wasn't a curve at all, but a staircase. I didn't recite. I translated. I spoke the way you talk to a friend you trust, with clear edges, no fluff numbers connected to outcomes like bones to muscle. After 20 minutes, Knife Part closed her folder. That's fine, she said. Thank you. I set my notebook on my lap and started to rise. Elliot's voice cut through, quiet but firm. Stay. Something tightened in the air. He looked at a folder without my name on the tab and flipped nothing. You submitted after the deadline. I did, I said. I walked to a cafe with Wi-Fi and hit send 2 minutes too late. Deadlines are clean. Life isn't. And you still came. I've been told no by nicer rooms, I said. I figured your yes was worth walking for. Silence. Knife Part shifted, annoyed by something she couldn't label. Elliot closed the blank folder. Everyone else give us the room. The panel hesitated, then gathered their papers with the performative sighs of people who believe their time is more expensive than yours. The door latched, and it was just the two of us. Elliot stood, paced to the window where rain streaked down the glass like the city was washing its face. He didn't turn when he spoke. When I was 19, he said, I sold a second-hand amplifier to pay for my first server. Ate ramen for a month. I remember thinking hunger sounds the same no matter what your bank account says. He glanced over. Why didn't you apologize for your feet? Because my mind's the part I brought to sell, I said. Apologies would have been off-brand. Something like a smile threatened the edge of his mouth. He walked back, rested on the table. I want to hear how you got into that chair. I told him Dad fell from a scaffold he shouldn't have been on. Mom cleaned houses until her wrists were wrapped in ace bandages that smelled like menthol. My little brother Marco's asthma. The hallway where the apartment lights stayed on until 1 a.m. Me in a hoodie under a buzzing bulb, solving case studies I printed at the library. Dropping out when Mom got sick. Applications ignored. Interviews where they smiled like pity was a tip. The sandals snapping. The choice to keep walking. He listened without interrupting, which is rarer than it sounds. When I finished, he nodded once. Ms. Brooks, he said, would you take an offer from someone who doesn't care whether your shoes match the carpet? I'd take an offer from someone who recognizes that a mind can outlast a dress code. Good, he said. Welcome to